Hello and welcome to podcast 14. We're keeping up with that series we're doing on the senses at the moment in our head to toe podcast theme. And this time we're talking about the nose, this little thing here, the olfactory sense that does so much for us and triggers so many memories. And so it's Celeste. Hi, Celeste.
Hey, Sue.
And me, and we're going to run through this olfactory thing we've got going on here that makes our life so exciting and smells good. Okay, Celeste, I'm going to hand over to you to get going on this one.
Good one, thanks. So I guess to start with, why do we need to smell? So taste is a big thing. Actually, 80% of the taste that we perceive is our sense of smell. So there's little receptors in the roof of our nose, and when we eat food, there's some of those little molecules go up the back of our throat to our nose, and that's part of our taste. Another one is, as Sue's already pointed out, danger. So it's part of our early warning system. There's chemoreceptors that can detect smoke or gas or food that's off. It's so the idea is so that we don't put toxic substances in our body without realizing it. Although our brain does have the capacity to choose not to heed that warning, and we'll do things like smoke and vape and all those kind of dangerous activities anyway for another secondary gain. However, at least we've got that warning system there. Joy, honestly, our sense of smell is one of those simple pleasures in life, and it enhances our memories, it enhances our recall of memories and our enjoyment of life itself. To be able to walk out and take a good sniff of the early morning air and all the little flowers that are in aromas that are in it is one of life's simple pleasures. And then, yeah.
No, I fully love that idea of
yeah. Oh, honestly,
only because I've had friends who've lost their smell completely. And I think because, sometimes you get a meal and the smell is just divine. And so you're sitting there and you go, oh, this smells so good. I can't wait to start. And then the person next to you, my friend, goes, well, what does it smell like? Tell me about it. And you're like, oh, nuts. Because I feel bad often.
Yeah, this is part of our anticipation of the enjoyment. It stimulates our appetite so that we'll actually want to eat. It's really hard for people who don't have a sense of smell to actually get interested in food because the pleasure part of it isn't there.
100%.
The other thing, it's a bit of an indicator for our overall health. So as Sue's already alluded at, that loss of smell can be a sign of declining health. And things like cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, or dementia, MS, often are associated with a deterioration or an alteration in the sense of smell in the years leading up to that. I had a statistic, it's something like they're twice as likely to develop cognitive decline within 5 years. The statistic from my study that I was reading. So it can be significant. So I guess the moral of the story there is simply if you notice a change in your sense of smell, just pop off to the doctor and have a chat to them. And it may be something that's really fixable, like there may be some polyps on the inside of the nose you can have a referral to the ear, nose and throat person and have surgery to get rid of those. It may be that you have allergies and there's, as a course of treatment, finding out what's causing the allergies that can minimize that swelling and so forth that causes that loss of smell. So often there's a solution. So it's good to know what you're dealing with, then can make a plan to deal with it.
Yep.
So
allergies actually, that's a really good point. Allergies, because you get that allergic rhinitis, that drippy thing.
Oh, yeah, I get that. So
and people have it when they sleep at night and they get that postnasal drip and they get secretions sitting on top of their lungs while they're sleeping, and then they wake up in the morning with a hacking cough while they clear the secretions, but they don't realise it's a simple allergy. It's not like a lung condition.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of people that have that.
Yeah, our noses are so important, aren't they? You've just probably reminded me.
So moving on, how does a sense of smell work? So there's just tiny little molecules that are dispersed into the air from like the pizza cooking in the oven or the smoke from the fire that's dispersed into the air. And they touch the lining of the roof of the nose, and there's little receptors in the lining of the upper roof of the nose, and they're called our olfactory neurons. In fact, the sense of smell is called olfaction, to give you a bit of terminology, and they're stimulated, and then they convert that into an electrical signal that's sent to our the olfactory bulb in the brain. It's actually not far away from our nose, and then we can process those signals, and it's a whole collection. Every smell that we identify is made up of a pattern of different molecules together, and that's what our brain is able to work out and say and recalls patterns of previous smells, and then assign, oh yep, that's smoke, I wonder where it's coming from. Another fun fact, we've got 2 nostrils, which helps us to work out where a smell's coming from. So we want to find that pizza restaurant that we can smell that pizza. Then we know which way to head. If we only had, if one nostril was blocked, it's really hard. It's just like if you've only got one ear functioning or one eye functioning, that distance perception is...
Yes. That's a really good point, because we didn't talk about when one's not working, how the other one has to, compensate.
That's right. Yeah. So our sense of smell, it's really powerful memory and emotion stimulus.
Yes.
And I think, everyone can think of something that that just, you smell. Like, to some people, like maybe lavender was really significant for you, a relative or someone that always wore lavender or had it in the house or in their garden. For me, I can remember lantana in my grandparents' garden, and us kids used to play in it. I mean, it was actually an ornamental then, never mind that it's a real pest out at our farm now. But I still like the smell of it because it takes me straight back to my childhood. I'm sure you've got a similar story, Sue.
Oh, there's so many smells. But just recently, a friend who was in Bali, she loves the pandang plant. Anyway, I have got some in my garden, and and she's like, and she ripped a leaf off and crushed it and was smelling it. And she said, it reminds me of Bali. Isn't that amazing? Like, just what we remember.
Yes. And, they're actually, I'll get to that soon, but there are clever marketing people that are using our sense of smell to get us to buy stuff and that as well, and to, carry that happy memory of the holiday so that we might want to go back there.
Exactly.
And stay in that same place.
Well, that's how they get away with putting so much sugar and salt and everything too, but let's not go there.
We digress.
All right.
So the reason for this is interesting to me because, all of our sensory input comes from the eyes, the ears, our sense of touch, and it's processed through a central little part of our brain called the thalamus, and it's like the master controller, and the input comes through there, and then it goes up to other parts of the brain to be interpreted, and then for us to choose a response, and that happens like really, really quickly. But with our sense of smell, those little olfactory neurons that I was talking about, they go straight through to the part of our brain called the limbic system that works all of our emotions and our memory formation and our responses to that. So that's why when you can smell like something it might be a really noxious smell, and you'll immediately have that reaction to want to get away from it if it's something that, not just because it's noxious, but because it reminds you of something, some memory of a past experience.
Exactly.
So I can relate to this. I'll just quickly share a little story from when I was in early high school, and it was a boarding school situation, and the big tough seniors who I was really, really scared of used to come and haul us all out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning and march us downtown to the pool to do swimming practice before the swimming carnival was on. And so the thought of going swimming for me at that time gave me nervous diarrhea anyway. And then the seniors, on top of it, that when I walked out the front door of the boarding house, there was a diffuse smell of jasmine. And you know how everything's intensified in the early morning air, and these jasmine bushes are flowering like crazy. And so, that was the last smell I had as I went with my heart pounding out the gate and down to the town pool. And years later, 15 years later, I would still have this responsive of beating heart and this increased sense of alertness and anxiety at the smell of a jasmine bush. And I retrained myself out of it.
But because they're really quite lovely.
Yes, it is. And I guess for me, the reminder that I take out of that experience is that that's such a harmless, very small situation. But for people who suffer from PTSD, who've been exposed to, there might have been strong smells in some traumatic event, and they get that smell and they're just immediately back in that situation. And so for us dealing with people who we know have had trauma in their past, if you are aware of those triggers, and even if you're not, if you have that awareness that there could be something.
It's a possibility that person will react badly.
Yes, yeah. And how it's totally subconscious and out of your...
Oh, and it's not behavioural. It's just the brain is taking over. It's fight or flight mode, and they got to go.
It kicks in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was really interesting. And in the same way, I guess, is with, memories, that, there's some really good happy memories that come back to us that we really cherish every time we smell. We enjoy.
And then there's the ones in nursing. I'm going to bring my nursing hat on now. But, I used to work in infectious diseases unit for a while, and I got very good at being able to smell Pseudomonas. Really good at being... Yeah, like you could walk into a room first thing in the morning and go, right, someone here's got Pseudomonas.
Yes.
I'm testing everybody. Like, yep.
Who's got that foot wound?
Yeah. Someone's got it. I got to find it. And so there's those sorts of things, I still remember, I'm just going to use the word. I'm not going to define it because it's, but, when patients would have melena, straight away, like, yep, I've got to sort that out. Yeah. So there's a lot of triggers, like you can smell them before you see them.
Yes, absolutely. So moving along, the title of this slide is When Scents Don't Make Sense. So there's a few conditions where our sense of smell can be a bit mucked up. And one is that anosmia, which is a complete lack of the sense of smell. That can be when you've got a really severe cold or allergy in a simple sense, or it may be any of the aforementioned conditions like congenital conditions or acute brain injury that may have caused that complete loss of smell. And late COVID, it can come up as well, but I'll get back to that in a moment. Hyposmia is like a reduced sense of smell, and this is like more of with our aging and degenerative conditions. And so it's just sort of maybe reduced, but it's still there. And parosmia is when smells are misinterpreted because the olfactory neurons aren't firing. They're not all online together. So this was a case I was reading about for a woman who had COVID in the really early stages of the pandemic. And at that time, they hadn't actually identified loss of smell as significant for COVID. So she's pretty much over the other symptoms, and then suddenly lost her sense of smell. And then a couple of months later, it started to return, and she thought, "Oh, this is good. I'm getting better." And then all of a sudden, it just went wild. It went feral, went completely discombobulated, and she was just getting put off by food, like food that you would normally eat. All of a sudden it's really like something died in it, or some just really strong reaction. And so there are a lot of foods, and even toothpaste was a trigger for her, and it took her like 9 months to actually get back more towards normal, but it still wasn't completely back. They're saying it can take up to 2 years to regain full functioning smell.
Wow.
And it's just because like some are working and others are not quite back online yet. That tissue's been damaged where those little sensory receptors are.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought, it's very hard again. It's that whole thing about what can you eat? You get frightened to eat because you think you're going to be, you need a vomit bag just in case.
Yeah, because you just don't want to eat.
That's it. And it's a bit disconnecting for people as well. Which leads me to another interesting thing, and that is that our sense of smell can actually be retrained. So there's some early evidence that's going on to look into the effectiveness of this. And so there's a couple of studies where they've shown that when they had people on a training program of smelling a certain range of smells at a particular time of the day over a period of time, that they not only got better at identifying those smells over a period of a few months, they also improved in other areas of cognitive function.
Yes.
The theory is that because we engage not just our sense of smell, but there's processing that's going on to identify the smell, to recall where have I had that smell before, what do I associate that with, and it's causing more connection between different parts of the brain. So there's a lot of interest in this, that it may help for people with cognitive decline and those kind of conditions that might help them to preserve function or even improve their function. So,
well, that's all that neuroplasticity and changing the brain. When we look at neuroplasticity, and I mean, you look at those people who use their noses amazingly, so the people who can, smell foods and wines and tell you the grape that was grown on the right side of the hill by smelling something. And you're like, oh, that is just phenomenal, because they have trained their brain so well to know what that smell is.
Yeah. Another fun fact, and this is what I alluded to earlier, that smells can be used to lure us to respond or behave in a certain way, or to get us to behave in a way that is amusing to others. Like that, we had a fella that I used to work with that was really, really sensitive to the air freshener that we used in the room after, an occasion that needed air freshener. And he was just about like a blowfly that had been sprayed with mortine. Every time that stuff was around, he had to actually leave the whole ward to get away from it. And
oh,
wow. Get his nose back on deck. So, but also in businesses, different hotels and so forth are experimenting with using certain smells to help people feel warm and relaxed and in a friendly environment that they'll want to come back to and carry those memories with them then. So when they smell that smell in future, it's it takes them back to their holiday experience.
Yeah, definitely. That's why candles sell so well these days, because people want that particular smell to remind them of a childhood Christmas or to remind them of
they're even experimenting with the smell of coffee, because it has the effect of making people more alert and tuned in. That after a long haul flight, if you smell the smell of coffee when you're hopping off the flight, you're more likely to give a positive review for the airline and forget how jet lagged you feel or how uncomfortable your legs were in the plane.
And how exhausted you are to just bloody get off the plane.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's
good.
About it for our sense of smell.
But how do we keep looking after our nose so it keeps going as well as it can go?
Yeah, things like don't smoke. That really sets up your sense of smell. I know people who, even after they've given it up, they still never really got their full function back, but they would remark, after they'd given it up for a few months, like, oh, wow, I didn't know that this smelt like this. They just weren't aware of a lot of smells. They were missing out on so much because of the smoking.
And then they don't appreciate how much they smell
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
Because can I say that's one smell I cannot stand is the smell of someone after they've had a cigarette outside and then they come in.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, nah, can you go? Because I don't want that smell. Like I actually find it offensive. Yeah. So it's one of those weird things, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And there's certain drugs and so forth. Like, I mean, the obvious one, snorting cocaine, that's going to burn your nose out pretty quickly and stuff up your sense of smell as well. So, not a good idea, Chloe.
And it can actually erode your septum. Interesting. So don't do that, kids. Stop it.
And that brings me to the end of this lesson for today.
Well, thanks everyone for listening today, and we hope that there's something in there that resonates for you, and or something we might have missed and you think, I wish they'd talked about that. So if that's the case, drop us a line. You can, share this podcast on, with your friends, your family, people, maybe you don't like them. Share them with them too. I don't know. But share them out. Also, drop us a line, please. Let us know what else you'd like us to talk about, because we like talking. So we might want to talk about something you're interested in. So let us know. What's with Health podcast on Facebook, and also leave us some notes on our YouTube channel as well. That's awesome too. Have a great day. Look after yourself. Keep caring. Bye.